There are a ton of builds in Destiny, and with Frontiers on the horizon, I asked you all what you thought was the best build for every subclass on each class. Those votes and responses are what sparked this series to life, and I'm making these videos in hopes that they can be used as refreshers for current players and complete guides for new players looking to hop into the game. All of these builds will not be using the seasonal artifact and can be used in any endgame content that you would like to do. So if you want a build to work towards that should last theoretically forever, look no further. Once everything is posted, there will be a total of 18 builds for you to chase after, so if you're curious about another playstyle, definitely be sure to check them all out. I've been working on this project for quite a while, and it has definitely taken a long time, so I really hope you all can enjoy them. If it wasn't for you, series like this could not exist, so I just wanted to say thank you. And finally, if you are new here and enjoying the content, consider doing all the normal YouTube stuff and joining our Discord server. All of your support really does go a long way and is genuinely appreciated. But without further ado, thanks for clicking on the video, and let's jump right into the build. All right, next up on the block is going to be the Solar Titan. Solar Titan has always been a very consistent subclass. It's what most people would use if they're going for anything like a Solar Boss, because it is just extremely easy to survive. You still get a lot of great benefits from it as well. Yes, it is by no means the best subclass in the game anymore for Titan, but overall it is still just a very consistent, easy to play, and it's more so just like a workhorse. You can get the job done. Even with a lot of nerfs throughout the years, this build is still very playable, and I think that's just a testament to how good it is. All right, jump right into it. First off, we need to take a look at our exotic armor. Now, no shocker for the Titan, it's either going to be the Syntheseps or Worm God's Caress. Both these are going to increase your melee damage. Worm God's giving you extra weapon damage with its benefit, and the Syntheseps giving you extra super damage, weapon handling, and reload speed. I personally like to run Syntheseps a lot more with this build because it is just a lot easier to use. You just got to be surrounded. You're going to proc body enhancements, get increased melee damage, whereas something like Worm Gods, you have to basically get kills over and over to constantly get the melee damage up. With Worm Gods, you will be able to get more melee damage, but again, it is a lot more challenging to keep the melee damage increase up. But with Syntheseps, you just run into enemies, you get damage, you get super damage. And I think Syntheseps is just better overall in that regard, at least in my opinion. But let's jump into the subclass now, because this is where a lot of this build is going to come into play. Now, we're going to do this a little different because I'm going to start off with abilities, because abilities is what matters the most. Our first main thing is going to be the throwing hammer, or the bonk hammer, however you want to call it. This is going to allow you to basically throw a ranged melee out, and you can pick this hammer up. It's going to recharge extremely quickly, and then you can keep throwing it over and over again. Pairing this to Syntheseps, you can make this little hammer do a ton of damage, and since you can spam it all the time, this can play a lot into our aspects and fragments. Even without the throwing hammer, your base melee itself is also going to be able to do some cool things once we start talking about the aspects. But just know overall, you want to throw this throwing hammer over and over again, and you rarely even have to use a weapon with this build. And then for the other abilities, I do like to take a healing grenade just so I can heal if I'm ever in a sticky situation. But if you want to run a damage grenade, you totally can. A damage grenade will pair with some of our aspects. And then also I run a towering barricade. Once again, you can run a rally barricade if you would like to, but towering barricade's nice because you got to be very aggressive with this build. You can throw this down and you have a pretty protective wall so you won't die. Now for the super, I like Hammer of Soul, but if you're a Burning Maul fan, definitely be sure to take that as well. Hammer of Soul, I think, is just a little bit better in my opinion. You can pair this with the Syntheseps super damage increase, and since Hammer of Soul is a roaming super, you're going to get this back extremely quickly, and it makes it pretty potent for ad clear. Now for the aspects, this is also where a lot of stuff's going to come into play. But first off, let's take a look at Roaring Flame. So final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar ability stacks 3 times. So obviously reading that, you can already understand how this is going to be very good with an ability that you permanently have. So every single time you get a bonk hammer kill, you're going to get a stack of Roaring Flames. This is going to stack on top of your Syntheseps or Worm God's Caress, whichever one you decide to use, and this is going to let your melee damage just do some crazy things. In most scenarios in the game, you're going to be able to one-shot most of the enemies, obviously unless it's something like a beefy major, because of all the damage stack that you do get. Now, another thing to point out is that with Roaring Flames, it's actually going to turn your base melee into a melee that counts as a power melee. So this will be able to proc armor mods. It's also going to be able to apply Scorch, and if you ever don't have a throwing hammer and you do have Roaring Flames proc, don't be scared to just go in for base melees. Your base melee is going to be very good with this build. Since Throwing Hammer now does have a small cooldown whenever you pick it up, you can basically throw a Throwing Hammer, go for a normal melee, your Throwing Hammer's back, throw the Throwing Hammer, go for a normal melee, your Throwing Hammer's back, and it's a gameplay loop that you can get down. It's very easy, and you can just basically, again, punch everything that you want to with this build. And then for the other aspect to help out with survivability, so we can't punch everything, that is going to be Soul Invictus. So Solar ability Final Blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating Scorched targets create sunspots. Your abilities regenerate faster and your super drains more slowly while standing in a sunspot. Sunspots apply Scorch and deal damage to targets inside. Entering a sunspot applies Restoration. So obviously that is quite a paragraph of stuff that this does, but just know that every single time you defeat a target with your bonk hammer, or throw a hammer of soul, or defeat a scorch target in general, you're going to make a sunspot. Sunspots are very good because they're going to do damage, apply scorch to enemies, give you restoration if you walk in them, and then on top of that, also increase your ability regen and make your super last longer. So even Hammer of Souls get a benefit for this, because if you're standing in it, you can throw more Hammer of Souls, which again will make more sunspots. And since the super already lasts long, combining that with the fact that it is a Roman super, you're going to get it back very quickly, you can honestly spam Hammer of Souls quite a lot with this. But then obviously the main benefit is that your bonk hammer can now make sunspots to do additional damage, also give you that restoration so you can be very, very tanky. You're going to be able to have a permanent restoration at all times with this, and even if you just need to stand in a sunspot to get your class ability grenade back, you could do that as well. This aspect is honestly insane with the amount of stuff that it does provide, and you can take advantage of all of it with this setup. Now for our fragments, our first one's going to be Ember of Century. So your class ability to recharge is faster when you scorch targets. Since you're going to be able to scorch targets with the sunspots you're making from your bonk hammer, now you can just get your towering barricade back a lot faster, or rally barricade, whichever you choose to use. Next up, it's going to be Ember of Appearance. A solar weapon or ability found blows will extend the duration of restoration and radiant, since we will get restoration from the sunspot, and if you're running something like healing grenade, you will also get it. And this just means now every time you get a bonk hammer kill, you're going to keep proccing this restoration timer, so you can have this permanently. The next up is going to be Ember of Torches. So power up melee attacks against combatants will make you radiant. This is great because again, we're always going to be throwing our melee. Now we're going to permanently have radiant on us all the time. This is good for making our weapons do additional damage, but it's also just nice because Radiant does provide barrier capabilities. So if you're running harder in content where there's champions, you just know you're always going to have a way to deal with barriers, which is very, very good. And again, Ember of Empyrean will let you have this permanently because you're going to constantly be getting throw and hammer kills. And then finally, it's just Ember of Ashes, so we apply more Scorch stacks to targets. This is nice because like I was saying, your base melee will actually be able to scorch targets if you don't have a throwing hammer. So you can kind of just run up and keep punching an enemy over and over again. And within 3 punches with something like Ember of Ashes, you're going to cause the ignition. So your base melee can actually do a ton of damage, obviously pairing that with the ignition and the synthesis and everything of the sort. So with this aspect, it obviously buffs everything in the build that can scorch, obviously your sunspots as well, but it kind of turns your base melee into a powerhouse if you don't have a throwing hammer and you do have Roaring Flames proc. And now for the weapons of this build, kind of like the other Titan builds is based around melee, literally nothing matters. You can run whatever you like to. Tractor Cannon is good if you want to debuff target, also make enemies not shoot you. If you want to run something like Incandescent Hill Clip, this can play into the build a little more. Obviously Hill Clip's just good for survivability. And again, just run literally whatever is just kind of in the meta, whatever is the ball CPS meta, because the whole build itself is just you throwing this hammer and just burning everything with Scorch. And then for the stats of the build, I would definitely go with 100 Resilience to get your 30% damage reduction. This also will increase the cooldown of your Towering Barricade, so you get that a lot faster. 100 Discipline, so you can throw your Healing Grenade a lot more often, or again, whatever grenade you would like to, because with Roaring Flames, you are going to increase all of your ability damage. So if you run any damage-based grenade, your grenade will do a lot more damage as well. And then for the rest of the stats, I honestly just throw it into Intellect because recovery doesn't matter because you always have restoration. Strength is also pointless because you always get the throwing hammer back. And mobility is pretty much always a worthless stat in PvE activities, but Intellect, you get your super back. Intellect also kind of a worthless stat, but honestly, all 4 of them are worthless. I think Intellect in this scenario honestly is giving you the most bang for your buck. Now for the armor mods, this is what I'm running if you like copying them down, but as a further look, our first mod, I'm going to be honest with you, is totally up to you. I have a Harmonic Siphon because I do just run a solar weapon. You can make some orbs with it, but if you want to run something like Powerful Friends, if you are playing in any team-based scenario, you can give your teammates a lot of armor charges because you're going to be able to pick a lot of orbs up with this build. But if you're running anything like solo, you know, Harmonic Siphon will get the job done. Now, hands-on, so we get bonus super energy on melee kills. Obviously, this is a no-brainer to take. We're going to be getting melee kills all the time. Now we can spam our super even more. And again, Hammer Soul is a Roma super. You get that increased duration if you stand in a sunspot, and you also get the increased damage for synthesis. It kind of turns Hammer Soul into a powerhouse. Next up is going to be Dynamo, so we can reduce the super cooldown whenever we use our class ability. Since we can spam our class ability a lot with Towering Barricade, this just means now we get some extra super energy. Next up for our arms, we're going to be running triple heavy-handed. So every time we get a melee kill, we're going to make an overpower. This is going to be on every bonk hammer kill we get. We're constantly making orbs, and that's why I was saying if you want to run something like Powerful Friends, you pick this orb up and give your teammates armor charge. But these orbs are going to be very, very crucial for this build. Now, next up is going to be our chest piece. So always run resistant mods to swap this out for whatever content you're going into. This is where the orbs come into play, is on our boost. So we get a recuperation. So if we pick an orb up, we're going to heal. So now every time we get a bomb camera kill, we're picking the orb up, we're getting the restoration heal, we're getting a chunk of heal from recuperation, and it is very, very hard to die. Next up is innovation. So we get grenade energy every time we pick an orb up. Since you don't need melee energy, since you always have the bomb camera, you can get your grenade back a lot faster. Again, if you're playing a healing grenade or a damage grenade, both will work totally fine. And then absolution, so we get cooldown for everything. So this stacked with innovation actually will give you more energy than if you just were to run double innovation. So basically you get more grenade energy, but this will also create you some extra class ability, which is nice. And even if you opt in to take something like insulation is only giving you 4% class ability energy, where absolution is giving you 5%. So you might as well run absolution here anyway. And then finally, for our class item, I do run a powerful attraction. So if I use my class ability, I'll pick up all the orbs around me. Again, you can spam your time barricade quite a lot with this build because of all the scorch with Ember of Singeing. So now you can pick all the orbs up. Proximity ward as well. So if I go for a finisher, I will get a powerful overshow. This is great because you're going to be in the thick of it quite a lot. So you're going to be able to just be able to use a finisher on enemy, get this overshow, and you won't die, which is great. In the meantime, the restoration will also heal you while you're kind of going through that animation. And then finally is a 1-2 finisher. So whenever I have 3 stacks of armor charge, I will be able to go for a finisher, which obviously pairs well with proximity ward, and I will refill a huge portion of my melee energy. This is literally just a backup. So if you ever throw your throwing hammer and you can't pick it up for some reason, or it kind of goes off the map or something, this is going to allow you to go for a finisher now to get around 80% of your melee energy back, so you won't have to wait as long to get your throwing hammer back. Now again, if you do have Roaring Flames proc, your base melee is also very good, so you can kind of, you know, be in the downtime, just go for your base melees. And then with this, you're going to be able to get your melee back extremely quick if something ever does happen. And you're always going to be at 3 armor charge stacks, so it's never going to be a time where you can't proc this, because again, you're making orbs all the time with heavy handed. Now, like I do at the end of all these videos, I want to reiterate, you don't have to run a single artifact perk for this build to work. But this season, there's honestly not even a lot you can run, but obviously when something like Frontiers comes around, if there's anything to do with Scorch or anything to do with melee damage in general, or just solar in general, be sure to come in here and click on these, because it's going to turn this build into an absolute powerhouse, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with running artifact perks. And finally, for the Transmog, I did take advantage of the Ablaze shader, just like I did on my Warlock, going for that same theme. The Hunter will have it as well. The thought process here was Fire Astronaut or something of the sort. Obviously, it has a very astronaut themed look going on, but with that Ablaze shader, it kind of, you know, it looks like you've been engulfed in fire a little bit. Overall, I think it turned out looking pretty cool, and if you want to make your Titan look like this, definitely be sure to copy it down. But that is going to do it all for the Solar Titan. It's a lot different from the Solar Warlock, because the Warlock is all about healing and supporting your team, whereas this is just getting in there and just throwing a hammer everywhere. Like I said in the beginning, there are better Titan builds out there now, mainly looking at Prismatic. However, this is just a super consistent build. It's very easy to survive with it, and the amount of benefits you get are pretty crazy. But as always, if you were a veteran player and watched this all the way through, I truly appreciate it. I hope you learned at least one thing new. And if you're returning or a new player, I wish you all the best of luck with putting this build together for yourself. Anyways, though, that's going to do it all for me. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Peace.